Yo, dudes, the Empire's pretty chill. Maybe you could, like, join it or something.
Hey everyone, Lucimus Prime here. So, it is time for another franchise ranking video today. It's been a very long time since I've done one of these videos, and it's going to be for another video game franchise. And this is my favourite video game franchise based on a DC superhero of all time, and I guess in DC in general. And this consists of 4 video games, 3 of which were made by one company and 1 made by another one. And this franchise I'm going to be ranking from best to weakest in my opinion is none other than the 4 games of Batman Arkham. So this is a ranking from best to weakest because in my opinion none of the games are bad. There's one game which I personally think is weaker than the others, and I'm going to be ranking with my personal opinion, so if you guys don't agree with me, that's absolutely fine, but please respect my opinion just like I respect all of yours. So then, kicking off with first place for me. In first place for me is not just my favourite Batman Arkham game of all time, but to me, this is the greatest DC game of all time that I've played. And even from replays, it still holds up phenomenally, and that game, of course, which I personally think holds up fantastically, is none other than, and of course, 2011's Batman Arkham City. So, this to me is the greatest DC game of all time. I absolutely love everything about this game. A phenomenal story with awesome gameplay, just what you want in a Batman game, with great voice performances, such as, for example, from the absolute legend Kevin Conroy as Batman. Rest in peace to Kevin Conroy. To me, he is the greatest Batman ever, who can never ever be topped. And in this game, he absolutely gave a phenomenal, fabulous performance as the character. Mark Hamill was also amazing as the Joker as well in this. And I especially think the way the game portrayed Joker was done so well, in my opinion, just executed perfectly. And I've also got to give tons of praise to the game's graphics department, because the game is in 2011 and 13 years later on replays, it holds up really well. It's hard to believe it's that old in my opinion, because it just looks so incredible. And it's definitely a way better game than today's game, graphics and detail wise, absolutely. And yeah, everything about this game in my opinion is perfect. Just everything I'd want in a Batman or DC game in general is in this game. So if I could give Arkham City a score out of 10, if I could give it a score higher than 10, of course I would, but in this case, I will definitely give Batman Arkham City a full-blown 10 out of 10. Just a phenomenal game from start to finish. Just perfect in my opinion. The best DC game ever in my opinion. Just an absolute masterpiece. It's a shame that Rocksteady really went downhill recently when you compare it, of course, to their Arkham trilogy. Like, goodness me. Then in second place is going to be, of course, what kicks off this franchise. And this game, of course, also just kicks off the franchise in second place for me, is none other than 2009's Batman Arkham Asylum. So, this is definitely, in my opinion, a really amazing start to a franchise, and it has great voice acting once again, of course, as I mentioned before, like from Kevin Conroy, rest in peace, and Mark Hamill as Joker. And also, as well, I love how this game also features my favourite Harley Quinn of all time, Arlene Sorkin, may she rest in peace. In my opinion, she's the best Harley Quinn of all time, and I definitely really miss her very much. And I can accept her not being in the other Arkham games because she retired from playing the character, of course, after Arkham Asylum and also the game DC Universe Online, so I can accept her not being in the others. But in this game, wow, she absolutely nailed it as Harley in this. And I also love how, just like the rest of the franchise, this game got really dark as it went on and on, which I definitely really love, because Batman as a franchise is not for kids. So I really appreciate how this game did not hold back on the darkness, just like the rest of the game certainly did. And I definitely also think that these games, in my opinion, portray Batman a lot better than the movies, in my opinion, too. Because one thing I feel the movies lack is probably Batman's detective skills, because I feel that's not really much of a film, which I think is a shame. And I guess also in some cases they're not really as dark as the games either. Unless, of course, we're talking about Batman Returns, which in my opinion is the darkest DC movie of all time. And the graphics in this game are also, in my opinion, amazing. And considering it's from 2009, it also holds up really well too. Like, why this game and Arkham City got a remaster is beyond me, because in my opinion, they didn't need them. They just needed a PS4 port. They need to be remastered, because in my opinion, they hold up really well. And sadly, Return to Arkham Remastered, in my opinion, wasn't good graphics-wise, which really sucks. But when it comes to things that I personally wasn't a fan of in this game, which is why I prefer Arkham City, I personally found the scenes involving the Toxin really hard to get through, because it was really confusing. And what was also annoying is, if you stepped into a light of Scarecrow's goggles when he's looking at his giant form, you get killed instantly, and I personally wasn't a fan of that. I ended up getting angry many times playing, but it took many tries. That really stressed me out. And I also was not a fan of the snipers in Arkham Asylum either, as you're going around the asylum. They really got my nerves a lot, so I had to, plan out to take those down before fighting the enemies on the ground, and that was definitely, in my opinion, really annoying. But nonetheless, though, I still love Arkham Asylum, a phenomenal start to this franchise, and without this game, we wouldn't have this great franchise, would we? So, if I was to give Arkham Asylum a score out of 10, I'd probably give it a very solid score of 8.5 out of 10, only because of those few bad qualities that I said before. But other than that, it's a great game, and I'd definitely recommend it if you want to see a great start. But personally, I think Arkham City is much better. Then on to what is my third favourite in the franchise, and to me, this is the end of the Arkhamverse, because we dare not speak of the monstrosity that came out earlier this year involving the Suicide Squad. Screw that trash all away. To me, this is the end of the franchise, and that, of course, is 2015's Batman Arkham Knight. So, just like the first two games, it's a great Batman game in my opinion. I have lots of fun playing this, and considering it's the first one to be released on 8th generation consoles, in my opinion, it's definitely brilliant when it comes to 8th generation console standards. And just like with the first two games, I've got to once again give tons of praise to this game's graphics department, because this game has, in my opinion, the best graphics in the franchise, and it looks so realistic, in my opinion, just beautiful, in my opinion, to look at, just stunning visuals, and with tons and tons of detail, which even gamers have actually discovered in recent times playing the game. Like, it's just shocking how this game, next year, will be 10 years old, and gamers are still playing it and finding lots of hidden details in it. It's just incredible, in my opinion. And the voice cast is also once again fantastic. Kevin Conroy, rest in peace, always delivers as Batman, and in this game, he once again gave a phenomenal performance as the Cape Crusader. And Mark Hamill was also once again brilliant as the Joker, in a surprise return, I must say, because he comes back in as a hallucination after, of course, the character died in Arkham City, which is probably one of the most shocking moments in gaming history, in my opinion, and what all the Batman fans would consider to be shocking as well, of course. In this game, he was definitely really funny as a hallucination, but Mark Hamill definitely nailed it as always, and the rest of the cast was also brilliant too in their roles. When it comes to the new cast, though, my favourite part was undoubtedly the absolute legend John Noble as Scarecrow. A perfect casting in my opinion, and definitely in my opinion a lot more terrifying than Dino Andrade's version, because while I thought Dino was good in Arkham Asylum, I personally think that John Noble was miles better in my opinion, because he really nailed how terrifying Scarecrow is, which he of course is meant to be. And it's easily my favourite voice of all time from John Noble. He's a great actor, and I think he absolutely nailed it, making Scarecrow such a scary character. And I also, as well, did also like the addition of a Batmobile, and I can accept it being used in the game many times because it wasn't in the first two games, so I suppose it made sense to include it a lot to make up for its absence, I guess. But, in my opinion, his gameplay was quite questionable, which I'll get to in the bad qualities. And, as I also touched upon in my previous videos, talking about how old is better than new for Rocksteady, and also why Arkham Knight didn't need a sequel, I think this game, to me, also has a great ending, which routes the story really well. It ties up loose ends, and to me, it's the end of the Arkhamverse. That's what I'll say, absolutely. So, when it comes to bad qualities, though, I will say, when it comes to the game's new villain being Arkham Knight, I personally only liked him when he had his helmet on, and he has that pretty badass voice, voiced by Troy Baker. But when he's unmasked, that's when he becomes really annoying and unlikable, and it's the other cause that he's Jason Todd. Now, I was okay with him being Jason Todd. It was a good plot twist, but in my opinion, Jason Todd was such an annoying brat once he was unmasked, and he just wouldn't shut up. I remember playing the game for the first time on Xbox One, when he was, complaining all the time, I was like, oh, shut up, Jason, because he really got on my nerves. Even on my replay, he got really annoying. So, and I would also sadly regard it as my least favourite role of Troy Baker, which breaks my heart, because he was her voice actors of all time. But I think Arkham Knight was much better when he had his helmet on, in my opinion. Much better. And when it comes, as well, to all bad qualities as well, when it comes to Batmobile, I also wasn't much of a fan of its driving mechanics, because I can remember crashing many times playing it because it was so confusing. And also, the parts where you got to chase vehicles also got pretty annoying, in my opinion, when we go too fast for you. And also, as well, taking down, of course, the tanks was also a bit of a pain having to sneak up behind them. I personally wasn't a fan of that. And I feel it got really excessive, unfortunately. But the mechanics just really annoyed me a lot. But I still appreciated the game having the Batmobile in it, though, I guess, because I feel it was sorely missing in the previous games. But because of those bad qualities that I've mentioned, I would probably give Arkham Knight a very solid score of 8 out of 10. And as far as I'm concerned, this is the end of the Arkhamverse. No more after this as far as I'm concerned. Then on to what is my least favourite in the franchise, but still in my opinion a good game, which of course is none other than 2013's Batman Arkham Origins. Now, I'd regard this as an underrated game in my opinion, but I would, however, say it's the weakest for some reasons. So, the good things is that despite this game not being made by Rocksteady, it's made by Warner Bros. Montreal. I really appreciate how they actually took the same gameplay style and the open world aesthetic from the first two Arkham games into this, really. And of course changed the setting to snowy because it's taking place at Christmas, this game is. So you could say this is a Christmas game. And Roger Craig Smith also voices Batman in this game, not Kevin Conroy. But I think Roger Craig Smith did a brilliant job trying to sound like a younger Kevin Conroy in this game. So I really appreciate that he stayed faithful to how Batman sounds in the later games. I really appreciate that, although I did of course really miss Kevin Conroy, rest in peace. Troy Baker was also good in my opinion as the Joker, as well. I think he did a really great job playing the Joker. I also saw like Brian Bloom as well as Black Mask, or of course is revealed of course in the game the Joker's in disguise as him. And I also as well definitely really love JB Blanc as Bane. He's probably my favourite Bane voice actor of all time because of this game. I think he absolutely nailed it as Bane in my opinion. I personally think Bane was much better in this game than he was in Arkham Asylum because I feel like in that game he was literally just a Hulk knockoff. Thankfully in Arkham City, he just has a cameo appearance where you meet him in the open world as an Easter egg. But nonetheless, I still think that JB Blanc is my favourite Bane voice actor of all time because he got Bane's personality really right in my opinion. And I definitely love his performance in this game. And I guess most of the boss fights in my opinion are good. Like, for example, the boss fight with Firefly, and also a boss fight with Bane on the skyscraper in the hotel was really good. And also the final boss with Joker, I guess, was also good too as well. But there's one particular boss which I'll get to bad qualities though, which I wasn't a fan of. And the open world was also really good too as well. I love how they of course took the previous map of Arkham City and they made it look of course like a slums area before it becomes Arkham City, and they changed it around a bit. So I really appreciate how it stayed faithful to how Gotham looked in the other games. And they also gave it a new area being of course New Gotham, so that was really good. And the graphics in my opinion were also great as well too, with also great detail as well I must say, which was definitely very stunning. And because the game has a snowy atmosphere, it helps of course conceal dated graphics too as well, because obviously back then the graphics might be dated now, but because of the snow it hides most of it. And the cutscenes in my opinion are cinematically stunning as well in my opinion too. And the story is also really good too, being a prequel to Arkham games. I think it's really good in my opinion, but bad qualities, what I will say is there's one particular boss fight which actually made me rage quit on Xbox 360 when I was young, and that's the boss fight with Deathstroke. And even on my PS3 replay, I still got really angry playing my boss fight because I can remember dying tons and tons of times on that boss fight. But eventually, after tons of tries and tons of rages and screams, I was able to defeat Deathstroke. But it was such a painful procedure having to defeat Deathstroke because he just wouldn't get defeated at all, no matter how hard I tried. Eventually, I learned how to use a back claw to like pull him towards me and slam him to the ground, and that helped a lot. So I just wish I learned that sooner when I first played the game on Xbox 360. So that's probably it, really. And also, as well, the no-brainer being that I do miss, of course, the Arkham cast who are not in this game, like Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. Or I do think that Troy Baker as Joker and Roger Smith as Batman was still good, but I still miss Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, though. Because I think both of them, the Arkham games, the trilogy is so amazing, in my opinion. So, nonetheless, though, because of a rage-inducing boss fight and missing certain cast members, and I guess also some parts may have also been a bit confusing for me as well when I played it. And also as well, I wasn't really much a fan of Carrie Payton as Killer Croc. I mean, I do love Carrie Payton as a voice actor, but I wasn't a fan of Killer Croc in this game. I personally think Steve Bloom in the other games is miles better in my opinion, because I think he nails Croc's personality and his voice to absolute perfection in my opinion. Carrie Payton was just okay in my opinion, but I think he's way better in DC as Cyborg, and I guess in terms of Arkham territory as Azrael and other characters too. But as Killer Croc, I wasn't much a fan of him. I prefer Steve Bloom way more. But if I was to give Arkham Origins a score out of 10, I'd probably give it a very decent score of 7 out of 10. Not a bad game in my opinion, just both my qualities make it, in my opinion, the weakest Arkham game. So, if I was going to do my ranking of the Batman Arkham games from best to weakest, so, in, of course, first place for me, of course, is my favourite DC game of all time, Arkham City. My second favourite, of course, is what kicks off the franchise, Arkham Asylum. My third favourite is, of course, to me, the ending of the franchise being Arkham Knight. And then my least favourite, of course, is a prequel to a trilogy being Arkham Origins. Still a good game, but to me the weakest one. So, you know the drill, guys. Be sure to give this video a like. Also, be sure to talk in the comments what you guys think of Arkham games, how you guys rank them. If you play them, we'll see you guys would rank them. Also, be sure to join Team by pressing subscribe views to come in the future. And I'll see you all later.